Welcome to The Happy Writer, a show about creating and sustaining a long-term author career. My name is Patty Jansen, writer of science fiction and fantasy. I've published independently since 2011. This show covers motivation, diversification, learning new skills, and your place in your career. Come on in and be happy. In episode 68 of The Happy Writer, I'm going to talk about vanity presses. When I was trying to get published traditionally, and they were starting to spring up everywhere and trying to prey on writers, it seemed like everyone knew what vanity presses were. But in these days of self-publishing, it seems that not many people who have never moved in traditional publishing circles know what vanity presses are, and know why they should avoid vanity presses, why they're not a good choice, and how you can pick them. I will also talk about why self-publishing and vanity publishing are entirely different things, and why vanity publishing will probably never go away. In short, a vanity press is a company that will do all your publishing tasks for a fee. You would say, fair enough, isn't that what we all do? We hire out our editing and cover design, and some of us engage small presses to distribute the books to retailers, because some of us don't really want to do all of that ourselves for various reasons. There is probably a bit of a sliding scale, but the most important attributes of a vanity press are that they charge more than is necessary, and they have aggressive marketing. And this marketing is geared towards authors. They should be selling books to readers, but they're selling their services to authors. A vanity press is a company that professes to be a press, but directs its marketing to authors. They don't care about what happens to the book after it's published. But I can hear people say, what is the difference between hiring an editor and hiring out the entire process to a company? Is that vanity publishing? The acceptance of self-publishing has made these lines rather murky, but this still holds. Any company that still calls themselves a press and charges you money to publish and advertises themselves to authors is not a press. They are either a service provider or they're a vanity press. It used to be, when you would try to get traditionally published, that people would say money flows to the author. You don't pay to be published. With the advent of self-publishing, things grew a bit more nuanced, because we actually do pay for parts of the publishing process. We pay for editing, we pay for cover design, and we pay for services that market our books. Often the service providers are sole traders or very small groups of people. They will often only provide one service, and you need to get different contacts and entirely different people to do all those things. With vanity companies, they offer to do everything, and their packages are not cheap. Very often the vanity presses are attached to a major publisher, and they're definitely a company and not a one- or two-person operation. So why did the legitimate publishers rush themselves to establish their self-publishing vanity press arms? Well, some of them. When they reject your manuscript, they market themselves to desperate authors as another option where you can pay a hefty amount and they will publish your book, the book that's just been rejected by an editor, as not fitting the market, not ready, not good enough, or otherwise not suitable for them. The authors that sign with one of these companies, and they are the likes of Macaulay, Balboa Press, to name a few large ones, pay anything upwards from $10,000 and they will take the whole process off your hands. Easy, right? And look, they even offer expensive marketing packages too. They are a traditional publisher. They should know how to sell books, and that means all I need to do is write. Sounds easy. Of course, this is full-on predatory. They are preying on the frustration and insecurities of writers who just want to see their book out there. These are writers who are already in despair. They thought writing the book was hard, and now they're submitting to publishers, and they find that selling the book is even harder. And look, they offered this option where you can just pay some money and be done with the whole frustrating and painful process. Except those books never sell well. Those books were probably not ready to be published. Remember, they were rejected in the first place. The company does some sort of editing job, but after having seen efforts that companies like this did on the books of one of my husband's friends, I can tell you that their editing efforts are less than stellar. The covers are not really that great, and their marketing packages don't really deliver results. Traditional publishing sells to bookshops, and bookshops sell books. Traditional publishers pretty much suck at any other kind of marketing. If you ever stumble across one of their ads on Facebook, you will see that they are poorly targeted. They still use newspapers and other outlets, which don't really sell a lot of books, even if they do boost the ego of the author. Most of the publishers' efforts are geared towards booksellers, who are the publishers' main customers. They are not geared towards the end user of the product, the reader. Self-publishing uses a very different model. Most self-publishers, there are some exceptions of course, but by far the majority of them, sell far more in ebook and audio, if it's available, than they sell in print. Traditional publishers sell dead tree books. They don't know how to sell ebooks. Their ebook sales come as a result of their print book sales, and they begrudgingly make their books available as ebook, but would probably prefer not to do that at all, because their margin on ebooks is less. So this is one of the main drawbacks. Vanity presses advertise themselves as being associated with traditional publishing and bank on name recognition. But traditional publishing doesn't actually know how to sell ebooks in the self-publishing way, and the level of editing and cover design they offer is slapdash at best. For this, they charge exorbitant prices and continuously bug authors for more expensive packages. If this doesn't satisfy your definition of predatory, then I don't know what does. So why do I think people will continue to fall into this trap? To be honest, I think it is now potentially even worse than it was when self-publishing was not an option. Because the lines between self-publishing and vanity publishing and traditional publishing are blurred. Especially when you're just a beginning author, you might be swayed by that advertised convenience of it. You know you should get your book edited. Where on earth do you find an editor? You can't design your own cover, but how do you find a good cover designer? And what sort of thing needs to be on the cover anyway? You're completely at a loss. And then the idea of having to sell the book gives you hives. You just want to write books. You don't really want to have to worry about selling them. It is these types of people that are particularly vulnerable to vanity publishing schemes. They are easily lured into expensive packages with all the bells and whistles. Some of the services even offer to organize a book launch for you. These desperate writers don't care so much about the money because they have just retired and have some money. What more do you want? Someone who organizes everything for you. Great. My husband had a friend who wrote historical fiction. He spent years writing his first book, like so many of us. But he was also at that stage, about to retire, and wanted to travel overseas. He asked about publishing. At that stage, I had been self-publishing for a few years, so I sent him a lot of information on how to self-publish, where to find editors, where to get cover designers, and a rough outline of how much it would cost. I didn't hear from him for a while, but a few months later it turned out that he had signed with one of the large vanity presses. Why? The package was at least 10 times the cost of everything I had outlined, and he wasn't really selling any books. My husband bought a book just to help him out and make him feel better about himself, but the book was poorly edited and the cover was very bland. He felt good about having published his book, and it turned out he probably simply wanted to tick that box. He didn't care about saving money because he had a career of work. He had his retirement money. He had a good job for most of his life, didn't have any children, and he and his wife simply wanted to tick the published box and not have to worry about it. And even if there are much better options to do that sort of thing, if this is indeed all you want with your book, just publish it and then let it sink to the depths of Amazon unseen, then there are still much cheaper options of doing this. There are even legitimate companies that offer to help you with all of it. But these large offshoots of the traditional presses have a lot of advertising money behind them, and you will notice that if you Google self-publishing, that ads will start to pop up in the ad boxes for the Balboa presses and the Macaulays and that lot. They and companies like them provide a much more legitimate service to corporate clients. These are people who want a nice-looking book, probably a company report or some other kind of non-fiction, to give away at workshops and training courses within that company or within their industry. They don't care how much it costs. They just like the convenience. Of course, they are a very different type of client and also a legitimate use of a book. But of course, where it all falls down is when it comes to selling the book. We have already established that the traditional publishers service bookshops and don't really know how to sell self-published books directly to readers. Why would you trust them with this task? The thing is that most of these writers don't know that. They are inexperienced, they have no idea what they're doing, they just want their books out there and don't care so much about the money. Some of them don't even care about learning how to market and how to spend less money on services that will do a better job at selling their books. My husband's friend was certainly in that category. I gave him all the tools that I had at the time, and he still chose to go with a predatory Vanity press. As far as I know, he published his second book with them as well. He liked the convenience and didn't care about the unsold books in his garage. Maybe he did only sign for ebooks for the next volume, who knows. But by listening to me ramble on this podcast, you have already shown that you're interested in learning. It is generally assumed that you would need an editor and a cover designer. These are people with two different skill sets, so you hire two different individuals to do exactly those things, one to edit and one to design your cover. It doesn't need to cost you much more than $1,500 combined. In fact, that's probably expensive. Then you learn how to upload the book yourself. You may pay for someone to do the formatting, but really, formatting is not that hard. In all, if you have paid much more than $1,500 to produce your book, you have paid too much. If you really don't want to do all your own marketing, I would recommend that you look at a platform called Readsy for book marketers. These are people who are vetted to provide the service of a certain quality. Again, it may not work for your book, but at least these people are not going to charge too much or take advantage of you. I think people go to vanity presses simply because people are lazy and because they despair of having to spend more time finding out all this stuff they don't want to know. My husband's friend was also definitely in that category. He just wanted to enjoy life, and he didn't want to learn how to produce or market his book. Of course, he should have looked for a traditional publisher, but to be honest, he probably didn't have the stomach for the constant rejection and submissions either. Nobody said the self-publishing route is easy. There is a lot of self in self-publishing. This is also why I resist the word indie publishing, because it sounds better than self-publishing. Self-publishing is self-publishing. It means that you need to do a lot of stuff yourself. It means that the responsibility with getting stuff right is with yourself. It also means that if something is not right, you can fix it yourself. But you have to learn how to fix it yourself. And you have to market yourself. And those people who can't be bothered to learn all those things, and who also can't be bothered to go on the submissions and rejection circle, they easily fall into the clutches of these predatory companies. That is what they were set up to do, and some people are even happy with that. It's a sad reality, but it's true. It is also true that although everyone always talks about saving money and not having money, there are also an awful lot of people in the world who have a lot of money, more than they know what to do with. I still wouldn't advise them to spend it on one of these companies, but the fact that these companies exist means that it has to be profitable for them, a sad fact of life. If you are determined to be a proper self-publisher and eventually learn all the things that you need to learn, don't sign with any of these and save yourself the embarrassment of having to admit to it later. In the next episode, I'm going to talk about some of the more unusual benefits of self-publishing. Thank you for listening to the Happy Writer Show. Check out links and information about other episodes on my website at pattyjansen.com, where you can also find out about my books. You can support me by subscribing to the show or on Patreon at patreon.com/pattyjansen.